Faster than a speeding bullet.
I ran until my muscles burned and my veins pumped battery acid.
More powerful than a locomotive.
An idea is like a virus. Resilient. Highly contagious.
Able to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
Hey guys, Jared Moon here from Into 3 Fitness, and welcome to the Better Humanology podcast. Just me and a microphone today talking to you, trying to share some of the best information that I possibly can on becoming a better human and how to make sure that you're moving in that direction in 2019. This is something, towards the end of the year, really around December 15th, I kind of shut down the creation mode, the grind mode, all that, and really reflect and plan on what has to happen for the next year to make me better in basically every area. Not just how do I make the business better, not just how do I make my family better, really what can I do in every single area. And I'm going to share a little bit more about that process, but I really want to talk more about 3 habits I think are worth building. And they're not 3 specific habits because I think that'd be ludicrous to say, yeah, you need to have these 3 habits if you want to be a better human. They're more categorical in nature, so 3 different categories that you could have a habit in. And this is based off of books I've read on the podcast. I'll share the books with you today, research that's been done over the years, and just some really, really solid stuff, guys. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you'll know where some of this stuff came from. And I think that if you follow just one of these recommendations that I'm going to go over and you build one new habit that you actually have by the end of 2019, you're going to be such a better person, a better human being by the end. So there's a quote that goes, people do not decide their futures. They decide their habits, and their habits decide their futures. And that's so, so very true. You think that you're going to sit down and plan out some epic year, but really you are your habits, what you do on a daily basis, whether or not you exercise, whether or not you eat right, whether or not you read and study, whether or not you invest time with your family. Those are the habits that you create and do on a daily basis that make who you are. I would be pressed. Like, you can ask anyone, say, what comes first? Does your family come first or does work come first? And everyone's going to say family. But if you were to look at your life or that person's life, does family really come first? Is that what you're doing? Is that the habit you've built? Is that the habit you've created? If I were to look at your life from an outside perspective and just document your behavior and where you spend your time, is family really first? And I'm not saying, this is what you have to do. I'm just saying you are your habits, no matter what those are. So let's get into, habits a little bit more, because it's thrown around a lot that people think that it's 21 days to start a new habit. We've talked about this a lot on the podcast. It's in a lot of books out there that's kind of been debunked, but just in case you haven't been brought up to speed, the University College of London asked in 2009 that very question, how long does it take to really establish a new habit? Really, how long till a new behavior becomes automatic? That's what a habit is. There is this confusion between habits and discipline, and I think you need discipline just long enough to build a habit. A habit shouldn't always be this disciplined grind every single day. Once it's a habit, it's just something that you do. It shouldn't take very much effort. This new behavior is going to happen. There's no willpower needed to continue the behavior. Once you feel like you don't have to really dive deep into your conscious energy reserves to do something, you have made something a little bit more habitual. So there's less resistance, less effort. That's really what a habit is. Well, anyway, the University College of London, like I said, in 2009, they asked that question. They found the sweet spot to be around 66 days for a new behavior to fully develop into this more automatic sequence, this automatic behavior. And so that's something good for you to know if you want to take like a 66-day challenge on one of the habits that we discussed today, or any new habit that maybe you're trying to create next year. Really, you should be shooting for 66 days, not 21. Now, we'll also note that in that study, if you really look at it, the range goes from 18 days to develop a new habit all the way up to 254 days to develop a new habit. And it really had more to do with how difficult the habit was with how long it took a person to develop that habit. So yeah, if you're doing something really easy and simple, maybe you can knock that out and that becomes an automatic behavior in 18 days. But if you're doing something that's really hard for you, like maybe it's a new behavior that you have to learn and you have to execute. So now you're learning a new skill and you're having to, use willpower to do it each and every single day. Now you're getting more into, maybe 200 days, 100 days, something like that. So just keep that in mind, but the sweet spot did seem to be 66 days. Now, just a little personal note on habit formation. So I started keeping really detailed journals, I'd say about 2 years ago. I buy these little Moleskine notebooks, and I always have one with me, and I'm documenting things and track habits and whatnot. But I've never been perfect on doing a habit tracking. But what's funny is I was pulling up some old journals as I was planning out 2019, and I was looking at the habits that I was trying to build then. And, a lot of them are automatic now. Like, I don't think about them anymore. So I'm moving on to new habits. And, I was never perfect in the formation of those habits. Like, a new habit probably honestly took me, a full 6 months to a year to develop, because it wasn't something that I was, super good at doing every single day. So the reason I tell you that is because a habit can be formed without your perfection. People get all psyched up, jazzed up for the new year. They want to start something new, become a new person, whatever. And it rarely works out, right? Like, it doesn't normally work out that way. And that's where we get discouraged. A lot of us have this all or nothing mentality. And so we jump into, all right, well, I'm going to do this 30-day challenge for the month of January. And then you miss 3 days. And so the whole thing's screwed. So you drop it. And I've talked about the all or nothing mentality and how it's absolutely ridiculous. We're all going to make mistakes, but just keep grinding, keep trying, keep bringing it back, and you'll be surprised. As long as you keep some sort of effort headed towards the direction of building a new habit, you will develop the habits. Like I said, I wasn't like super disciplined. I'm going to do this every day. I'd be good for like 3 weeks, and then I'd fall off the wagon for a week because maybe something in life, maybe it's not even laziness, it's just something in life, loved one in the hospital or something just knocks you off track, and you're not going to be doing those things, and then you just need to get back on track when life gets normal again, and something will come from it. So work hard and really set like a year-long goal of developing a habit, not something that you're going to try to be perfect. Never should perfection be the goal. But challenge yourself to your level and ability. That's another thing I would say in these habits. But don't strive for perfection and drop that all or nothing mentality. All right, so like I said, based off of my reading and research in this podcast and things that we've done, I really think that there are 3 habits that you should be trying to develop in 2019. I think that they're really beneficial. And I don't think that they should be very specific activities. I'll give you examples in each category, but like I said, it's not like eat your vegetables, work out, duh. You're like, they're more category stuff. Like, I think that can make you better. And really, I think these are great areas. And so we have 3 categories, and the habit should be making sure you do these activities or these categories every day or 5 days per week or 3 days per week, whatever you want. The habit really should be every day for 66 days if you feel like you can. Again, don't strive for perfection. If you fall off, just get back on and keep going. Because there's also in that research and literature, there's nothing saying that, well, I did 34 days and then I missed the 35th day, so I got to start over. No, you could probably skip one day and just do 67 days and it'll still work. It really has to do more with neuroplasticity in the brain. We're not robots. Like, there's no magic number here or some like, you pass certain mileage and you're good to go. Like, that's not really how it works. It's just when your brain finally makes that behavior automatic. So I'm going to get over to the habits now. The only thing I'll say is think of these as levels, because if you suck at building habits, and be honest with yourself, then make sure you only pick one of these. Don't try and do all 3. And if you're good at this kind of stuff, building habits and new behaviors is kind of your thing, which is not a lot of people, then maybe go with all 3. And I'll also say that these 3 can overlap. So you could have these 3 categories be one activity, and that would be really like a huge bang for your buck. So let's get started. Now, the first one is hormesis. So a lot of you have probably heard of this. I'm going to read, and like I said, each one of these comes from a book. And hormesis did not come from this book specifically, but the book is Own the Day, Own Your Life by Aubrey Marcus. A really good book talking about, a lot of routines and rituals, a lot of stuff, to be honest, we've covered on the podcast over the years. But he has just a really good explanation of hormesis in there that I'm going to read, and then I'll give you some examples of how you could apply this. So this is the first habit, the category of hormesis, And I know it kind of sounds ridiculous. We'll call it something else by the end, but hormesis is what it is. So I'm going to read his description of it because, like I said, it's a good one, and then we'll go from there. So we have known for millennia that resistance is the shortest path to growth. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another, says the Old Testament, Proverbs 27:17. Put more weight on the bar, you get stronger. Run harder, you get faster. It's a form of good acute stress known as hormesis. At its most basic, hormesis is a biological phenomenon in which low-dose exposure to an environmental agent produces a beneficial effect, while a higher dose exposure produces a toxic effect. The layman's explanation for this odd duality is often summarized by the famous Nietzsche quote, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." In theory, it can apply to nearly any activity, but for our purposes, we are focused on the good kind of stressors, which are natural and acute, the ones that happen quickly and then pass, which create hormetic response that triggers the body to repair itself and adapt to handling the same or greater stress in the future, aka grow. Vaccination is a good example of hormesis at work. You expose your body to a weakened version of a virus. The body adapts to the stress, develops antibodies, and becomes immune to full-fledged exposure of the same virus. Mark Sisson, best-selling author and thought leader in the ancestral health, writes, "Think of hormesis as your body hedging its bet and going a little above and beyond just to be safe. You don't just compensate for a stressor, you super compensate. You get stronger, faster, healthier, more resistance to the challenge, more resistant to the challenge than you were before." And so let's talk about some of those. What are we talking about? So he mentioned super compensation in there, and that's a term that we use in the strength and conditioning world and training in general. Is that's how your body responds to training. Is super compensation. Is you put weight on the bar and you're going to get stronger and continue to get stronger. You run fast, you're going to continue to run, getting faster. Your body's going to respond. But if you were to look at a lot of these activities, let's just look at exercise in general. If we brought an alien in, from another planet, and we told them what was good for a body, what was bad for a body, and we had him look at you do a high-intensity workout, and then look at your muscles and see all the inflammation and the breakdown and all that, the alien would be like, "This is clearly a bad activity. You should not do this activity. It's bad for the human body." But you'd have to further explain what happens over time, the supercompensation effect, what happens as the body repairs itself. It grows, it gets stronger, it becomes more resilient. So that's what you need to think of when we're talking about hormesis. So there are a lot of different ways that you can do this, and the three that I'm going to recommend would be heat exposure. That's one way to do it. So maybe, especially in the summers, or like summers here in Texas, like I don't even have to do anything but work out in my garage, and that would be a form of hormesis. You could do cold exposure, or going out to the heat. You could do saunas if you have access to something like that. Now, cold exposure is another one. Maybe you could do ice baths, cold showers, or you could even do, going outside in the wintertime when it's cold. Like maybe you're listening to this in a cold climate right now, and you could go outside with your head covered and your hands covered, but your shirt off or something like that, to really get exposed to the cold, or your body will bounce back. Now, obviously, there's it's what doesn't kill me, makes me stronger. So you're not going to stay outside for hours. It's just you're trying to get a low dose response to these things and then bounce back. And then the last one would be, I think, intensity or exercise. So a lot of you are already doing this. I'm doing that. So you might already have this habit built into play. But I would, like I said, I challenge yourself to your level in these things. So for me, I'm going to work out a lot in 2019. I just know, unless something were to happen, something catastrophic, that will happen. It's a habit for me. It's ingrained. So I'm not just going to check off, oh yeah, hormesis, check, because exercise is hormesis and I already do that. I'm trying to develop new habits, new things that are going to sharpen me to make me better. So maybe it's cold exposure that I need to start doing on a daily basis, or maybe it's heat exposure, something like that. Another way to do hormesis is restricting calories. So maybe trying 24-hour fast once a week, or doing intermittent fasting, restricting calories. These are other short, low, acute stressors that you're putting on your body that end up in some major benefits for your overall system. So that's the first one, hormesis. And I really think that if you were to make a daily habit of this in some way, shape, or form, you would be really good to go. Now, things I didn't mention. I didn't say do this at the same time every day. I didn't say, it has to be this specific activity. I gave you some examples, but you could probably research more on hormesis and find some other things that you could do. There are a lot of different things that you could do that would give you, a stressor to your body that would end up being good for you. To be honest, that's most things in life. Doing something stressful is going to be helpful because you'll overcome it and come out better on the other side. So that's the first one, including some sort of hormesis habit into your daily routine. And you could just call that stressor. Like it's so much easier to say than hormesis, but I feel like it has to be because you might have a stressful life or stressful job or stressful kids or whatever. But those are different types of stress. So yeah, they're probably making you better to some degree, but really not what we're looking for. All right, the second one is doing hard things, doing a hard thing each day. So let's talk about that for a minute. Now, this one comes from the book Grit by Angela Duckworth. You've probably heard me talk about before. Phenomenal book. Read that book if you haven't. And she has a very awesome concept in her book called the Hard Things Rule. Now, I do think that this was geared more towards parenting, but it's still a good rule, and I'm going to kind of give you my take on it, not just steal hers. But the hard thing rule has 3 parts for her. The first part is everyone in the family has to do something hard. Specifically, Duckworth said it has to be something that requires practice, something where you're going to get feedback telling you how you can get better, and you're going to get right back in and try again and again. So something that requires some sort of daily practice, but it's hard for you to do. The second thing is you have to finish what you start. So mentioning her kids in the book, she discusses, if I pay for 12 weeks worth of piano lessons, you're not going to quit on day 2. You're going to do all of them. So whether that's the quarter, the semester, the season, the event that you signed up for, the 12-week program that you decided to do, whatever it is, you need to do that and see that all the way through. And then the third part of the hard things rule is no one gets to pick the hard rule for anyone else. So I think this one is 100% geared towards kids because you can pick your hard rule. I wouldn't let whatever I'm saying dictate what your hard thing is going to be. And even with her kids, she will give her kids like an options, like here's 5 different sports you could play, and which one do you want to play or whatever. But everyone has to be doing a hard thing, and I think this is a really good rule and something I encourage everyone to do. So do one hard thing each and every single day. Now, what I'll say is a little bit different from Angela Duckworth. I think to some degree because she mentions that her hard thing is yoga. She has a daily yoga practice. Her husband's hard thing is running. He's a runner, so he runs every day. But I just don't. I don't know. I don't fully buy those. That those are being their hard things. Like if you're a runner and you run every day, that's probably not your hard thing after a certain point. Like that's enjoyment, right? That it becomes like a release or something that you're trying to get better at. Like it's really good for you. But I wouldn't really say it's your hard thing. Again, going back to fitness, like I don't consider fitness my hard thing. I don't consider it hormesis, even though it is, because I'm trying to build new habits, not just pretend like the habits I already have are all I need to keep working on. I need to develop new things. So where are you at in this process too? So what I would say for the hard thing is I would argue that the habit be just doing a hard thing every day, any hard thing each day. Because we've covered this over the podcast a lot. We talk about mental toughness. I ask every guest, how do we build mental toughness? And really the general consensus is, a lot of people don't pick an activity. Some of them do, but most of them will say, just doing something you don't want to do. That's how you're going to build mental toughness. And that's where I really think that your hard thing should be. So like sit down at the beginning of the day and you can map these things out. Like, okay, I really want to build the hard thing habit. So it doesn't have to be the same thing every day, in my opinion. If you sit down today and you're like, I have a really busy day, I'm going to get home late from work, and I don't want to clean the kitchen. That would be a really hard thing because I'm tired and blah, blah, blah. So maybe your hard thing today is something simple, like you don't want to do that, so do it. That's your hard thing, clean the kitchen. Maybe it is, I do not want to wake up tomorrow and exercise. Okay, that can be your hard thing. It's whatever is going to be hard for you. I recommend that you decide either the day before or the first thing in the morning, okay, what's my hard thing going to be today? Something you don't really want to do, but maybe it'd be beneficial for you, beneficial for the family, but it doesn't have to be like hormesis. But you see how these can kind of overlap. So what if your hard thing was a cold shower? Okay, now you're, two birds with one stone. You are doing a hard thing because you really don't want to take a cold shower, and it is a form of stress that your body will adapt to and be better for, hormesis. So you can overlap some of these things. And then, getting into my next rule, next habit suggestion, you really could wrap them all. But if you want to challenge yourself, I would make these different in every single category. Now, the last one that I have is the one thing. So, and this is where I'll talk a little bit more about my goal setting process. I posted this on Instagram the other day, and you can go check out my account if you want to. I mentioned at the end of the year, I kind of stop. I'm not trying to grow the company. I'm not trying to do new things in fitness. I'm just trying to maintain and finish out the year. It's probably the only part of the year where I do this. It's really like the last 2 weeks. I reflect. I do a lot of like, okay, where were we? Where am I? Where are we going? I really have to look at the big picture and see where I'm at on track to my overall goals. I have 5-year goals, 10-year goals, life goals. So where am I? What's the plan to get those things done? And I have been a huge, huge advocate for the book, The One Thing. And I talked about in this post, like I was handed that book. So my mentor's mentor was Gary Keller. So she worked directly one-on-one with Gary Keller. He was like a coach to her for a long time. And so if you don't know Gary Keller, he's the founder of Keller Williams, self-made billionaire, really incredible guy. Well, anyway, I worked with her, and she was my mentor, and she gave me that book right as soon as it came out because she thought it was really phenomenal, obviously coming from her greatest mentor. So she gave me the book. I believe it came out in 2013. And I was just like, I read it real fast, and because it's not a super long or challenging read. And so I read through it, and I was like, oh yeah, cool, one thing, got it. Stick to one. Like you could almost get the concept of the book by me saying the title. But there's so much more packed into that book, from time blocking to going small to, being purposeful. Like there's so many things in that book. So I really started studying it around 2016. And I mean study like, I hired coaches who specialized in this format of productivity and purposeful living. I downloaded courses and programs. I went and heard Gary Keller speak on some of this stuff, and I've read the book. I read it at least once or twice every single year to stay focused on my one thing, and I think I have a really deep understanding of one thing. It's something very serious to me, focusing on your one thing and focusing on having a purpose and vision and mission, but I think it's really, really freaking hard to find your one thing. I think it's the biggest thing. Is what is your one thing? What should you focus on? And that's what I spend a lot of time on each year, because the big one thing can stay the same, but how you're going to get there has to change every year, and that kind of becomes your year plan on how you're going to achieve your goals. And there's a lot of great productivity in that book. So definitely check it out, and that's kind of where all this stuff is going. And I think one thing, the biggest lesson I could give from all the research and stuff I've done on the one thing is it really is going small. It's picking the one thing that equates to 80% of your success. So like, what's the daily activity? What's the one thing that you can do? Like you might have this bigger financial goal or this bigger fitness goal, but like, what's the one small thing that you could do on a daily basis to, get there? To start hacking away. That he calls it in the book the lead domino. What's the first domino that you can knock down? That'll knock down successive dominoes until you eventually knock down all the dominoes, all your goals that you want to achieve. And you just have to start there, going one domino at a time. And so that is the biggest takeaway. Going small. I could get into some serious planning and productivity sessions with this stuff, but I can save that for another podcast because I don't want to dive into that entire thing right now. Because it takes me about 2 to 3 days to really map out what my next year is going to look like, from my faith to family, finances, fitness, business. And I don't set a million goals. Like I don't set like, okay, each of these categories have 10 or 15 goals. That's like the opposite of what you're trying to do in the one thing. Like, I really, zoom out to what I want and then keep going backwards and chipping away until I really only have like one or two things to work on in each category that I think is the one thing that's going to get me to my goal. And that is the hardest part of this entire thing. Like, you might be thinking about, okay, well, what is that? How does that work? And I can't help you with that. Like, I'm sorry. Like, you have to like just really give it an effort and try and do your best. If you think it's your one thing, okay, try that for 3 months. Is it working? No. Okay, we'll do something else. But I really think what you should do is have one thing each day. So if you were to take these 3 habits, now that I've kind of listed them all out, say you pulled out a piece of paper every day in the morning when you wake up and you say, okay, what's my stressor for the day? What's my hormesis for the day? Okay, cold shower. What's my hard thing for the day? Okay, I'm gonna clean the kitchen today because I really don't want to, and that'd be hard for me. Go into family life. Sometimes the household chores are very challenging after, kids and work and fitness and all that other stuff, right? So maybe that's your hard thing. And then you go, okay, what's my one thing today? And I really would encourage you, if you don't have like a very specific one thing, what's my one thing? Then just pick a one goal for the day. Every day, pick one goal for the day. Like, this is one thing that's going to get achieved. It's going to get done no matter what. I will not sleep until it's done. And when you only have one thing, it gets a little bit easier. It's not super difficult. It's not super overwhelming because, look, guys, we're all going to do all the other stuff that we have to do anyway. Right? We have some way that we're trying to work or support our families. We're all doing those things. We have to do those things. We have to breathe. We have to eat. Like, a lot of that stuff's just going to happen. You don't need to write the goals down for a lot of those categories. Sure, have business goals, have work goals, have family goals, but I'm just saying you don't have to write a lot of that stuff down because you're going to do most of it anyway. So there's no reason to pretend like you're setting these new goals. So what is the one thing that you could do today? It's just one goal that you know is going to move you forward. And maybe that's work out. Like, maybe it's just, I'm going to train today. I will work out today no matter what. If I don't knock it out first thing this morning, you know what? I'm going to knock it out before I go to bed. Like, it needs to be a no shit. Like, I will not get in my bed and sleep tonight until this happens. And I think that's the kind of discipline it takes to become the person you want to become. But we can't always choose comfort. We have to choose discomfort. And a lot of these things are uncomfortable. So choosing one goal per day. Now I want to share with you a little bit about like my plan. And I'm going to go to fitness just because that's an easy category for me to share with everybody. So I started thinking, I have a lot of things that I want to do fitness related in 2019. Like, I'm sure I want to hit some events in 2019, maybe some Spartan races. I have a 100-mile bike race that I want to do. I want to PR across all the different metrics that we track inside a Garage Gym Athlete. I want to get better, faster, stronger, like all those things. Like, I'm pretty ambitious with all that stuff. I don't really get stagnant in that regard. But like I said, there's a lot of different things I just mentioned. And so I kept peeling the layers back over and over. No. What's the one thing? Okay, is it training for that 100-mile bike race? If I'm going to do that 100-mile bike race. Maybe that's my one thing, keeping that in mind, signing up for that. But then I kept going back and that wasn't it because my goals are a little more broad. And so what I landed on, and this is a tall order, my one goal for 2019, I only have one fitness goal for all of 2019, one singular goal, and it's going to be really challenging, but I want to complete 300 training sessions. That's it. Like I said, I sat down, I brainstormed, I thought about everything, all I wanted to achieve, things I wanted to do, and what I landed on, after going really small, was I want to complete 300 training sessions. So somewhere, right now, I hit on average somewhere between 200 to 250 training sessions in a year. So this would be up to 300, that it's going to be average out about 6 days per week, which is a little bit more than we even program inside Garage Gym Athlete. So I might have some extra runs or something like that occasionally. But typically I'll stick to the 5 days a week in Garage Gym Athlete, maybe add one more thing on a day. So let's just peel that back. And my effort, what I'm trying to do here is help you understand how the one thing works and how you can maybe relate it in your life. So I don't have to worry about programming. I don't have to worry about results or anything like that because, whether or not you think I'm trying to sell you on anything, like our programming works. We just had 3 days into Fit Week, and we had 100 PRs with before we even hit the 72-hour mark. Like our stuff works. Our programming works. I'm the lead programmer. We have some other programmers doing stuff now. It just works. It's effective. We have methodology. It's proven, and thousands of people are proving it on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis now. So I don't need to worry about the programming. Like that's going to happen. I don't have to worry about which exercise program I'm going to do, or if I should jump from this program and this strength program and then that 6. No, I'm doing Garage Gym Athlete, and I'm going to be doing it for the entire year of 2019. Boom, done. So I don't need to worry about programming. I don't need to worry about getting stronger or faster. All that stuff's already taken care of for me because the programming will be there all year. So I don't need to worry about that. I can get that sort of like goal, like, okay, get stronger. What strength program do I need? I just take that out of the equation. Now going back to these events, I want to do some events in 2019. I don't really need to think or train for those events because I really feel like the track that I'm on in Garage Gym Athlete, which is the Hard to Kill track, it really keeps me ready and prepared for almost all these things. I've done Spartan races, I've done 100-mile bike races, and all that stuff without training for them, just being on the Hard to Kill track. So I don't need to really plan or do anything special for those events. All I need to do is go smaller and smaller. Now I want to try to increase in some area. So I realized, I looked at my training averages, how many training sessions I completed over the course of a year on average, and I wanted to increase that. Increasing that to 300 is a pretty significant increase. Like I said, if I'm averaging somewhere between 200 and 250 training sessions per year for the last several years, I mean, that's a pretty big increase. 50 at the top end, 50 more training sessions. At the low end, 100 more training sessions. Like that is a lot of training, a lot of additional training over the course of a year, even if it's small. Like even if I'm like, okay, well, my extra training session is just going to be a 20-minute run. Well, I mean, that's 20 minutes worth of running, compounded over a year. Like it's going to really add up. So that's my only goal. That's my only fitness goal. So like I said, I want to do a lot of different things. I want to accomplish things. I want to make sure that, I still maintain a certain body fat percentages and my metrics are good, but I don't need to worry about all that stuff. I'm just going to go as small as I can and focus on being consistent and challenging myself. Like I said, I've averaged 200 to 250 training sessions for years. I still push myself in the training sessions, but now I'm like, okay, you already push yourself in the training sessions. You already are consistent over the years, with this many training sessions per year. Let's up it, to a new level. Let's get more training sessions. And so, yeah, I'll be mindful of all my recovery and everything, but that's the one goal I set. And so that's what I would challenge you guys to do. Go small. Look at the big picture of everything you want to achieve, everything you want to do, and then just narrow it down, whittle away, because now in fitness, I only have one goal, and it's easy. It's not overwhelming for me. Not easy to do, but easy to set that goal. Now I can move on to something else. And I have I did this for every category in my life, and that's what I do. I have just one thing that I'm working on in my family, just one thing that I'm working on in my finances, just one thing that I'm working on in the business. So I don't have a million things pushing me to 1,000 different directions or feeling overwhelmed or like this is impossible. No, I just have a few things to focus on, the one thing in each area of my life. And that's it, guys. That's all I have. So no forms for you to download or things to fill out. I really would recommend that if you want to do this, kick off 2019 by just getting a journal and writing down either one or all three of these things every single day. That could be your habit. Now, keep in mind that is an additional habit on top of these things, because if you didn't journal and now you're journaling and doing hormesis, that's two habits. Just realize how much you're adding to your plate with this stuff. But it is something I highly recommend. Get out a piece of paper every morning or in your journal or your phone, wherever's easiest. So maybe, combine it with a habit that you already have, and get that hormesis, some form of stressor that would be good for you. Do a hard thing and focus on one thing or one goal every single day to chip away at the larger goals that you have. And that's it. And I'll end with repeating the quote from the beginning. People do not decide their futures. They decide their habits, and their habits decide their futures. So pick your habits wisely. Have a great rest of 2018 here, and I will see you in 2019, where we are going to crush it in every capacity. Thanks for listening.
your best. Losers always whine about their best.